6 smart ways to respond when women don't value you. There's a moment every man experiences at some point, and it usually starts in a very subtle way. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just a small shift in behavior that you can feel but can't fully explain. You're putting in effort, you're showing interest, you're trying to build something, but the energy you're getting back doesn't feel the same. The replies are slower, the conversations feel shorter, the enthusiasm is not where it used to be, and suddenly you find yourself thinking more than usual. You start asking questions in your own mind, wondering what changed, wondering if you did something wrong, wondering if you should do something differently. And in that moment, most men make the same mistake. They react instead of responding. They start giving more, trying harder, saying more, explaining more, and all of that comes from one place: discomfort. The discomfort of feeling like you are not being valued the same way you were before. But what most people don't realize is that this moment is not really about her behavior. It is about your response to it. Because being undervalued is not always loud or disrespectful. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it shows up as inconsistency, low effort, or lack of priority. And how you respond to that determines everything that follows. If your response is emotional, reactive, and driven by the need to fix the situation, you slowly lose your position. But if your response is controlled, grounded, and consistent, the entire dynamic shifts in your favor. The first thing you need to understand is number 1, stop overgiving immediately. When a man feels like he is not being valued, his instinct is to give more. He starts texting more often, trying to keep the conversation alive, trying to be more engaging, more interesting, more available. In his mind, he believes that if he increases effort, he can restore the connection. But what actually happens is the opposite. Overgiving removes balance. It creates a situation where your effort remains high regardless of how you are treated. And once that happens, your value starts to drop. Because value is not created by how much you give, it is created by how balanced the interaction feels. When one person is constantly doing more, the other naturally does less. So instead of increasing effort, you reduce it to match what you are receiving. Not emotionally, not out of anger, but out of awareness. You allow the situation to show you what it really is without forcing it to become something else. Number 2, stop seeking validation. When things start to feel uncertain, many men begin looking for reassurance. They ask questions like, "Are you okay? Did I do something wrong?" Or, "Why are you acting different?" It feels like communication, but it is actually a form of seeking stability from the other person. And the moment you do that, you place yourself in a position where your sense of calm depends on her response. But real interest does not need to be confirmed. It reveals itself through consistent behavior, through effort, through presence. When someone values you, you do not need to ask for proof. You can see it in how they show up. So instead of asking for clarity, you observe actions. You let behavior speak. And in doing that, you maintain your position instead of lowering it. Number 3, control your emotional reaction. This is where most people lose everything. Not in what they say, but in how they react. Something small happens. Maybe she replies late. Maybe she cancels plans. Maybe her tone changes slightly. And instead of pausing, they react immediately. They send emotional messages. They try to fix the situation. They express frustration, or they over-explain themselves. But emotional reactions show that you are affected. And when you're easily affected, you lose control of the interaction. Emotional control does not mean you do not care. It means you're not driven by impulse. It means you can feel something without immediately acting on it. You can pause, observe, and choose your response instead of letting your emotions choose it for you. Number 4, reduce your availability. If you're always available, always replying instantly, always ready to talk at any moment, you become predictable, and predictable attention becomes taken for granted. At first, it may feel like you're doing the right thing by being present and responsive, but over time, it creates a situation where your time does not feel valuable. Not because you're not valuable, but because there is no sense of priority. When you have your own life, your own focus, your own routine, your time naturally becomes more meaningful. You are not responding out of pressure. You are responding when it fits into your life. And that shift alone changes how you are perceived, because now your presence is not constant, it is intentional. Number 5, stop trying to win her back. When the energy drops, most men go into recovery mode. They try to bring things back to how they were. They become more engaging, more attentive, more expressive. They send longer messages, but try to be more interesting. They try to recreate the spark. But this approach puts you in a position where you are performing for attention instead of simply being yourself. And once you start performing, the dynamic has already changed, because now you're chasing something instead of allowing it to develop naturally. The stronger position is staying consistent. You do not increase effort. You do not try to force connection. You allow her behavior to reveal her level of interest. And if she comes back to the same version of you, not a version that changed just to keep her. And finally, number 6, be willing to walk away. This is the most important point, because without this, none of the others truly work. If someone consistently shows that they do not value you, your strongest move is not to convince them otherwise. It is to remove yourself from the situation, not emotionally, not dramatically, but calmly and clearly. Because staying where you're not valued sends a message that this level of treatment is acceptable. But walking away sends a different message. It shows that you have standards, that you respect your time, and that you are not willing to stay in a situation that does not match your energy. And more importantly, it reinforces that belief within yourself. At the end of the day, being undervalued is not the real problem. The real problem is staying in a position where your effort is not matched, where your presence is not appreciated, and where your energy is taken for granted. Because over time, that doesn't just affect the situation, it affects you. It slowly changes how you think, how you act, and how you see yourself. You start questioning your worth. You start adjusting your behavior. And without realizing it, you begin to accept less than what you originally would have. And that's where the real damage happens. Not in her behavior, but in your response to it. Because every time you stay in a situation where you are not valued, you reinforce a mindset that says this is acceptable. You tell yourself, without words, that this level of effort is enough, that this level of attention is enough, that this level of inconsistency is something you should tolerate. And once that becomes normal, it becomes harder to recognize when something is not right. But the moment you shift your perspective, everything starts to change. When you understand that you cannot control how someone treats you, but you can control what you accept, you stop trying to force things into place. You stop trying to convince someone to see your value. You stop trying to prove yourself through effort, through attention, or through persistence. Instead, you begin to move differently. You become more aware of your standards. You become more selective with your time. You become more intentional with your energy. And that shift is powerful because it removes desperation. It removes the need to chase. It removes the need to hold onto something that is not naturally aligned with you. You start to realize that the right dynamic does not require constant adjustment. It does not require you to overthink every message, to analyze every change, or to question your position at every moment. The right situation feels balanced. It feels consistent. It feels natural without forcing it. So instead of focusing on how to be valued, you start focusing on how you show up. You focus on your mindset, your behavior, and your standards. You focus on maintaining your composure when things change, on staying consistent when things become uncertain, and on making decisions that protect your self-respect instead of your emotions. Because emotions will always try to pull you back into situations that feel familiar, even when they are not good for you. But discipline, awareness, and clarity allow you to move forward instead of staying stuck. And once you reach that point, something important happens. You stop reacting to every small shift. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop trying to control outcomes that are not in your hands. And instead, you operate from a place of calmness, confidence, and control. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer dependent on it being perfect. And that is what truly sets you apart. Not what you say, Not how much you try, not how much effort you give, but how you carry yourself when things are not ideal. How you respond when effort is not matched. How you move when things become uncertain. Because that is where your mindset is revealed. So the goal is not to force someone to value you. The goal is to become someone who recognizes when they are not being valued and is willing to act accordingly without hesitation, without overthinking, and without losing themselves in the process. Because once you reach that level of awareness, everything becomes simpler. Your decisions become clearer. Your actions become more intentional. And your presence becomes stronger because it is no longer driven by the need for validation, but by a clear understanding of your own worth. And when you operate from that place, you don't just change how others respond to you. You change the type of situations you allow into your life. You naturally move away from what does not serve you, and you create space for what actually aligns with you. And that shift, more than anything else, is what transforms everything.
Follow for more if you want to understand women better.